The ship called Pathfinder moved slowly through the dark space at the edge of our solar system. Captain Jun Kim sat in his command chair, watching the stars on the big screen in front of him. "Captain, I'm picking up that strange signal again," said Tae-Yoon, the ship's tactical officer. His fingers moved quickly across his control panel. "It's coming from behind that large ice rock ahead." June leaned forward. After 3 weeks of following faint energy traces, they might finally discover the source. "Take us closer, but stay alert. Keep shields at full power." The Pathfinder was Earth's newest exploration vessel. In the year 2152, humans had built homes on Mars, the Moon, and several moons of Jupiter and Saturn. But in all their travels across the solar system, they had found no signs of alien life, until now. "The signal is getting stronger," said Hannah Park, the ship's engineer. Her dark eyes narrowed as she studied her screen. "It has a pattern I've never seen before. Definitely not human-made." Dr. Mina Lee, the ship's xenobiologist, stood beside Hannah. Her job was to study alien life, but so far she had only examined space bacteria and small organisms found on Mars. "This could be it," she whispered. "Real contact." As the Pathfinder moved around the large ice rock, they saw it. A ship unlike any human vessel. It was shaped like a giant teardrop, its surface shimmering with a metal that seemed to change colors as they watched. "It's damaged," said Tay, pointing to a large hole in the ship's side. "No signs of life or power except for that signal." June thought carefully. This was a historic moment, but also possibly dangerous. "Scan it completely. If it seems safe, we'll send a team to investigate." After an hour of careful checks, June led a small team across to the alien ship. They wore spacesuits with extra shielding, just in case. Inside, they found empty corridors with strange writing on the walls. The air was breathable according to their instruments, but they kept their helmets on. "The ship seems abandoned," said Mina, her voice filled with both disappointment and relief. "But it wasn't destroyed in battle. Look at the damage pattern. It seems like they hit something by accident." In what looked like the ship's control room, they found several small objects that seemed important. They were shaped like crystals, but warm to the touch, with complex patterns inside that shifted and moved. "These might be art," said Mina carefully, placing one in a container. "Or technology, or both. Either way, we should take a few for study," said June. "This is humanity's first contact with alien technology. Earth will want to examine these." They collected 4 of the crystal-like objects and returned to their ship. Hannah immediately took them to her lab for study. "Captain," called Tay suddenly, his voice sharp with alarm. 3 large objects just appeared on our long-range sensors. They're moving fast, heading straight for us." June rushed back to the bridge. On the main screen, he could see 3 massive ships appearing out of nowhere. They were made of the same color-shifting metal as the damaged ship, but these were shaped like giant arrowheads, at least 20 times larger than the Pathfinder. "Incoming transmission," said Tay. The screen changed to show an alien face. It had gray skin, 4 eyes set in a diamond pattern, and no visible nose. When it spoke, its words were translated by the ship's computer. "Human vessel, you have trespassed on Arcavian territory and attacked our scout ship. Prepare to be boarded and interrogated." June stood tall. "This is Captain Jun Kim of the Earth vessel Pathfinder. We found your ship damaged and abandoned. We did not attack it. We are an exploration vessel, not a warship." The alien's upper eyes narrowed. "We are the Arcavian Dominion, rulers of 500 worlds. Your primitive species is unknown to us, but your actions are clear. Our scout reported impact with an unknown object before communication was lost." "That was likely an accident," June explained. "There are many asteroids and ice bodies in this region. Silence." The alien commander's voice became harsh. "You will surrender and provide the coordinates of your homeworld for proper investigation, or we will destroy your vessel." June felt cold fear run down his spine, but kept his face calm. "We come in peace, but we will not surrender our ship or endanger our home. Perhaps we can meet in person to discuss." "Decision noted. Prepare for destruction." The screen went dark. "They're charging weapons," shouted Tay. "Evasive maneuvers. ordered June. Full power to shields. The Pathfinder shuddered as the first blast hit. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Shields at 60%, Hana yelled from her station. One more hit like that and we're finished. June gripped his chair. His ship was built for exploration, not battle. They couldn't fight back against these massive warships, and they couldn't outrun them with standard engines unless… Hana, is the experimental jump drive ready? Hana looked up, her face pale. Technically, yes, but we've never tested it with the ship. It could tear us apart. And if we stay, we're dead for sure, said June. Prepare the jump drive. Another blast rocked the ship. Sparks flew from a control panel and emergency lights flashed red. Shields at 30%, shouted Tay. They're preparing to fire again. Hana worked frantically at her station. Jump drive charging, and this will take 30 seconds. We don't have 30 seconds, June said calmly. Tay, drop all power from weapons and life support. Everything except essential systems. Give it all to the shields for one last defense, and then to the jump drive. The lights dimmed as power was redirected. The air grew still as life support slowed. They're firing again, Tay warned. Brace for impact, June ordered. The ship shook violently. A support beam crashed down from the ceiling, narrowly missing Mina. Shields failing, Tay reported. Jump drive at 95%, Hana called out. Her fingers flew over her controls. Setting course for Earth. If we survive, we need to warn them. On the screen, they could see one of the alien ships moving closer, preparing to capture them. Jump drive ready, shouted Hana. Jump now, ordered June. Hana slammed her hand down on the control. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then, the ship stretched, twisted, and shot forward faster than light itself. The bridge crew was pressed back into their seats by the force. Strange lights flashed outside the windows. A high-pitched whine filled the air as the ship's structure strained, under pressures it was never designed to handle. Then suddenly everything was quiet. The stars on the screen looked different. We made it, gasped Hana, checking her readings. We're just past Neptune's orbit. The jump worked. The crew cheered weakly, exhausted but alive. But June didn't join the celebration. Damage report, he ordered. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4, reported Tay. Emergency force fields are holding. Engines damaged but functional. Communications array destroyed. Sir, said Mina quietly. Those aliens, the Arcavians, they saw our ship use technology they didn't expect us to have. And they still think we attacked their scout. June nodded grimly. And they called themselves the rulers of 500 worlds. They won't just let this go. He turned to face his crew. We need to get back to Earth as fast as possible. The Arcavians will be coming and we need to be ready. As the damaged Pathfinder limped toward home, the crystal objects in Hana's lab pulsed with a soft light, their internal patterns shifting faster than before. Behind them, in the distant Kuiper Belt, the 3 Arcavian warships began to track, the energy signature left by the experimental jump drive, setting course for the Sol system and Earth. 6 months had passed since the Pathfinder returned to Earth with its warning. The damaged ship had barely made it home, limping into Earth orbit with failing engines and a dying power core. But the information it carried was worth more than the ship itself. Admiral Sung Ho stood at the window of his office in the Global Defense Headquarters in Seoul. From here, he could see the city stretching out below, people going about their daily lives. Most of them knew aliens had been discovered, but few understood how dangerous those aliens really were. Admiral, the Defense Council is ready for you, said his assistant. Sung Ho nodded and walked to the large meeting room where Earth's military leaders waited. On the main screen was a map of the solar system, with a red line showing the expected path of the approaching Arcavian fleet. They'll reach our outer defenses in 3 days, he told the gathered leaders. Our latest scans show over 200 warships. A worried murmur spread through the room. What about the shell? Is it ready? Asked the representative from the European Union. Sung Ho pressed a button, and the screen changed to show a woman working in a large laboratory. She looked tired with dark circles under her eyes, but she smiled when she saw the camera. Engineer Park, please update us on your progress, said Sung-ho. Hana Park, the former engineer of the Pathfinder, now led Earth's emergency defense project. The shell deployment is at 97% completion, she reported. All major population centers on Earth and Mars are covered. We're just finishing the power synchronization. And you're certain it will work? Asked a general from the American forces. The camera shifted to show a thin man with messy hair and glasses that kept sliding down his nose. Dr. Jin Kang was not a military man, but a physicist who had been studying the strange crystal artifacts from the alien ship. The mathematics are sound, Jin said, pushing his glasses back up. The Arcavian weapons generate energy in a very specific pattern. Our shield doesn't need to be stronger than their weapons. It just needs to redirect that energy. Like a leaf, in a stream, added Hana. It doesn't stop the water, it just guides it away. Not everyone looked convinced, but they had no choice but to trust the scientists. Earth's traditional weapons were no match for the Arcavian fleet. 3 days later, the alien ships appeared, just as predicted. They formed a ring around Earth, their dark shapes visible even from the ground, like new stars in the daytime sky. The Defense Control Center Admiral Sung-ho watched the main screen as the alien leader's face appeared. It was the same commander who had threatened the Pathfinder. I am Grand Marshal Vexer of the Arcavian Dominion, the four-eyed alien announced. Your world is now under our control. Surrender immediately or face destruction. Sung-ho stepped forward. This is Admiral Sung-ho of Earth's United Defense Force. We discovered your damaged scout ship by accident and meant no harm. We wish to resolve this peacefully. Peace is achieved through strength, Vexer replied coldly. And you have shown only weakness. You have 1 hour to surrender before we begin our attack. The screen went dark. Sung-ho turned to Hana and Jin. Is the shell ready? Hana nodded. All systems are operational. But Admiral, we've never tested it against weapons this powerful. Then this will be our test, Sung-ho said grimly. Alert all civilian shelters. Everyone needs to be underground when the attack begins. Exactly 1 hour later, the Arcavian fleet fired their first volley. Beams of bright red energy shot toward Earth from dozens of ships at once. People in shelters below ground could hear a high-pitched sound as the beams hit the shell. In the control center, everyone held their breath as they watched the energy. Beams touch the invisible shield and then slide away, dispersing harmlessly into space. It's working, Jin shouted, jumping up from his chair. His glasses fell off completely this time, but he didn't care. The energy displacement is exactly as calculated. The Arcavians fired again, this time with more ships. Again, the shell held firm, the deadly energy simply flowing around it like water around a rock. On the screen, Grand Marshal Vexer's face showed confusion and anger. Impossible, he growled. Increase power to maximum. Target their largest city. The Arcavian fleet repositioned, and this time a single massive ship moved forward. It was 3 times larger than the others, with what looked like a giant cannon at its center. That's their planet cracker, Hana said quietly. Based on our scans, it has enough power to destroy a small moon. The huge weapon began to glow. The air seemed to vibrate as it gathered energy. All power to the shell, ordered Sung-ho. In cities around the world, the sky darkened as if during an eclipse. The massive energy beam from the planet cracker struck the shell with incredible force. For a moment, the shield became visible, a shimmering blue dome covering the Earth like a protective hand. The shield flickered once, twice, but held. In the control center, Jin and Hana hugged each other in relief as cheers erupted around them. The planet cracker's beam had been turned aside just like the smaller weapons. On the screen, Vexer looked shocked. In 27 conquests, his forces had never failed to break through a planet's defenses. This is unexpected, he said finally. You have developed technology beyond your apparent level. It seems we will need to reconsider our approach. The communication ended, but the alien fleet remained in orbit. They're not leaving, Sung-ho observed. They're settling in for a siege. Hana studied her readings with concern. The shell held, but the strain on our power systems is enormous. We can maintain it for now, but we need a more permanent solution. Jin was examining data from the attack, his eyes wide with excitement. Did you see how the energy flowed around? The shell? It's even more efficient than we calculated. But there's something else. He pointed to a pattern in the data. The Arcavian weapons all pulse at the same frequency. It's like they only know one way to fight. Can we use that against them? Asked Sung Ho. Jin exchanged a look with Hana. Maybe. We need to study the artifacts more closely. There's something about their design that we're missing. Later that night, as Earth cities remained under the protection of the shell, Jin and Hana worked in their laboratory. The 4 crystal objects from the alien scout ship sat on a special table, their internal patterns shifting and changing. Look at this, said Jin, pointing to one of the patterns. It's not random. These aren't just art or technology. They're equations, mathematical formulas encoded in physical form. Hana leaned closer. You're right. And if I'm reading this correctly, these formulas describe energy flows, just like what we're seeing in the Arcavian weapons. Jin suddenly looked up, his eyes bright with realization. Hana, what if these artifacts weren't weapons at all? What if they were left for us to find? What if someone among the Arcavians wanted to give us a way to defend ourselves? Outside, the Arcavian fleet continued its silent watch, their massive ships hanging in the sky like dark moons. Grand Marshal Vexer stood on his command bridge, studying the unexpected blue shield that had stopped even his planet cracker. Find a way through that shield, he ordered his scientists. No primitive human technology will stand against the might of the Arcavian Dominion. Little did he know that on the planet below, humanity was already beginning to understand that sometimes the strongest defense wasn't a wall at all. It was knowing exactly where to place a single sheet of paper. 2 weeks had passed since the Arcavian fleet's first attack. The aliens had tried 7 more times to break through the shell, each attempt using different weapon configurations. None had worked. Earth remained safe behind its shimmering blue shield, but the siege continued. In their laboratory deep beneath Seoul, Hana Park and Dr. Jin Kang worked day and night studying the alien artifacts. They had barely slept in days, surviving on energy drinks and instant noodles. Look at this pattern again, said Jin, pointing to a holographic display showing the internal structure of one of the crystal objects. It repeats every 3.7 seconds, exactly matching the pulse rate of the Arcavian weapons. Hana nodded tiredly. We know their weapons work on this frequency. That's why our shield can deflect them. But we're still using too much power. The shell can't last forever. Jin ran his hands through his messy hair, making it stand up even more. What if we're thinking about this all wrong? These artifacts aren't weapons. They're not even defensive technology. He picked up one of the crystals, turning it in the light. They're beautiful, aren't they? Like art. Hana looked up, suddenly more alert. Art, with mathematical formulas hidden inside. Jin, what if these are from Arcavians who don't agree with their military? What if they're artists or scientists who wanted to share knowledge? Jin's eyes widened. That would explain why they were left in an abandoned scout ship near our solar system. They wanted someone to find them. They spent the next 3 days analyzing the artifacts not as weapons but as art pieces with hidden messages. The breakthrough came when they stopped looking at the repeating patterns and started examining the spaces between them. So simple, whispered Jin, staring at the new results on his screen. The Arcavian weapons all use the same energy oscillation pattern. There's a moment, just a microsecond, where the energy wave has a weak point. If you apply a countering force at exactly that moment, the entire beam disperses. Hana looked at the simulation running on her computer. Like a sheet of paper splitting a water stream, you don't need a thick wall, you just need the right angle and position. She turned to Jin with excitement. We don't need to make the shell stronger. We need to make it smarter, more precise. We can use 90% less power and still get the same protection. They immediately called Admiral Sung Ho to share their discovery. Within hours, engineers around the world began modifying the shell based on their new understanding. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, Grand Marshal Vexer paced the bridge of his command ship. He had conquered 27 civilizations without a single defeat. Yet these humans, with their primitive technology, had somehow created a defense that his most powerful weapons couldn't penetrate. "Status report," he demanded from his chief scientist. "We still cannot identify how their shield functions," replied the scientist, his 4 eyes downcast. "It appears to be absorbing or redirecting our energy weapons without using nearly enough power to do so. It defies our understanding of physics." "Nothing defies understanding," snapped Vexor. "We simply haven't looked hard enough." He stared at the blue planet below. "Prepare a ground assault. If we cannot break their shield from orbit, we will land forces directly." The scientist looked alarmed. "Grand Marshal, we haven't properly studied their atmosphere or—" "Do not question me." Vexor's upper eyes narrowed dangerously. "The Dominion does not accept defeat. Ever." Back on Earth, Admiral Sung Ho met with his top military advisors and the scientific team. Hana and Jin presented their findings, explaining how the shell now worked using just a fraction of its original power. "The analogy of paper splitting water is actually quite accurate," Jin explained, pushing his glasses up. "The shell doesn't stop the Arcavian weapons. It precisely intersects them at their weakest point, causing them to split apart and disperse." A general frowned. "You're saying our impenetrable fortress is actually as thin as paper?" "In a way, yes," said Hana. "But that's what makes it brilliant. The Arcavians expect us to use brute force against brute force. Their entire civilization seems built around that idea. Whoever has the most power wins. But we're using precision instead." "And it's working," added Sung Ho. "But we can't stay on defense forever. Our intelligence suggests they're preparing for a ground invasion." That was when Captain Dae-hyun spoke up. He was the commander of Earth's modest space fleet, which had been hiding in the shadow of the moon since the Arcavians arrived. "If I may suggest, Admiral," he said, "now that we understand how their weapons work, perhaps we could use that knowledge more creatively." All eyes turned to him as he continued. "The shell protects us, yes. But what if we could turn their own weapons against them?" Sung Ho leaned forward. "Explain." "Engineer Park and Dr. Kang have shown us that the Arcavians' weapons have a predictable pattern, a weakness. Their entire fleet uses the same technology, the same frequencies." Dae-hyun's eyes gleamed with determination. "If we built smaller versions of the shell, portable deflectors, we could redirect their weapons back at their own ships." A murmur ran through the room. It was bold, perhaps even reckless. But after weeks of sitting behind their shield, waiting for the aliens to give up, the idea of taking action appealed to many. "We would need a way to get close enough to their ships," Hana pointed out. "And a distraction," added Jin. Dae-hyun nodded. "We have a small fleet of ships hiding near Mars. If we could create a diversion there, the Arcavians might think our defense is weakening and split their forces," finished Sung Ho. He thought for a moment, then nodded. "Begin preparations. But we'll need more than just a military plan." He turned to Dr. Mina Lee, who had been quietly analyzing data from the alien artifacts. As the ship's xenobiologist on the original mission, she had been studying not just the technology, but also trying to understand the Arcavian culture. "Dr. Lee, have you made any progress understanding their communication systems?" Sung Ho asked. Mina nodded. "Yes, Admiral. I believe I've found a way to broadcast directly to their fleet, and there's something else you should know." She hesitated. "These artifacts? I don't think they were random art pieces. The patterns inside form what looks like star maps, and one of them clearly shows our solar system." "You're saying they knew about us before the Pathfinder found their scout ship?" asked Sung Ho. "I think some of them did," Mina replied. "And I think they wanted to make contact peacefully. But others, like this Grand Marshal Vexor, saw us as a potential threat or conquest instead." As the meeting continued and plans were made, the Arcavian fleet began repositioning. Several ships broke away from Earth orbit and headed toward Mars, just as human sensors detected energy signatures suggesting dropships were being prepared for a ground invasion. The siege was about to enter a new and dangerous phase. But for the first time since the aliens arrived, Humanity was preparing to do more than just defend. In their lab, Hana and Jin looked at the modified shield control systems. The energy usage had dropped dramatically, yet the protection remained, just as effective. "It's amazing, isn't it?" said Jin. "All that power, all those advanced weapons, and the key to stopping them was understanding how they flow." Hana smiled tiredly. "Sometimes the strongest defense isn't a wall at all. It's knowing exactly where to place a single sheet of paper," Jin finished. Captain Daehyun stood on the bridge of his ship, the Defender, hidden behind the largest moon of Mars. Around him, 30 small but fast human vessels waited in silence. They had powered down all systems except life support to avoid detection by the Arcavian fleet. "Sir, enemy ships approaching Mars," reported his sensor officer. "Exactly as predicted, 12 large warships." Daehyun nodded. The plan was working so far. Admiral Sung-ho had ordered their Mars base to create unusual energy readings that would look like the shell was being tested there. The Arcavians, thinking they had found a weakness, had sent part of their fleet to investigate. "All ships prepare for Operation Papercut," Daehyun ordered. "Remember your training. Wait for my signal." Each ship carried a miniature version of the shell technology. But unlike the planetary shield, these devices were designed not just to deflect enemy weapons, but to redirect them back at the shooters. On Earth, Admiral Sung-ho watched the tactical display in the command center. The majority of the Arcavian fleet still orbited Earth, but a significant portion had taken the bait and moved to Mars. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. Across the world, the shell flickered briefly and then seemed to weaken over several major cities. It was a carefully controlled effect, meant to be noticed by Arcavian sensors. In orbit, Grand Marshal Vexer saw the change immediately. "Their shield is failing," he said, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Prepare all weapons. Target the areas of weakness." "Grand Marshal," said his second-in-command, "our ships report unusual activity at the human Mars base." "Ignore it," Vexer snapped. "It's clearly a distraction. Their main population and power centers are on Earth. We focus our attack there." Near Mars, the Arcavian ships moved into attack position around the human base. They formed a half-circle, weapons charging, ready to destroy what they believed was a key part of Earth's defense network. "They're in position," Daehyun's sensor officer reported. "Weapons charging." "All ships, activate deflectors and move on my mark," ordered Daehyun. He took a deep breath. 3, 2, 1, now. The 30 human ships powered up suddenly and shot out from behind the moons. They moved with precision, taking positions behind and between the surprised Arcavian warships. "Enemy ships detected," shouted an Arcavian commander. "Open fire!" The Arcavian ships fired their powerful energy weapons, but the human vessels were ready. Their small portable versions of the shell activated just as the energy beams reached them. What happened next stunned the Arcavians. Instead of destroying the human ships, their energy beams hit the small deflectors and curved, turning back toward their sources. Several Arcavian ships were hit by their own weapons, causing massive damage. "Impossible," shouted the Arcavian commander. "How are they redirecting our weapons?" The human ships moved quickly between the Arcavian vessels, causing confusion. When the aliens fired again, more of their shots were sent back at them or redirected to hit other Arcavian ships. "Target their bridges and weapon systems only," Daehyun reminded his fleet. "We want to disable, not destroy." Back at Earth, Vexer was about to order his main fleet to attack the weakened areas of the shell when his communication officer interrupted. "Grandee, Marshal, we're receiving reports from the Mars fleet. They're under attack. The humans are somehow turning our weapons against us." Vexer slammed his fist on his command console. "How is this possible? Their technology is primitive." Before he could issue new orders, another surprise came. Every communication screen in the Arcavian fleet suddenly showed the face of a human woman, Dr. Mina Lee. "Attention Arcavian fleet," she said in their own language, which she had learned from studying their communication patterns. "We have accessed your central communication system to share important information." Vexor tried to cut the transmission, but it continued on all channels. Your scout ship was damaged by an automated mining drone, not by a deliberate attack, Mina explained. We have proof. She displayed sensor logs from both the human and recovered Arcavian systems showing the accidental collision. More importantly, she continued, the artifacts you believe we stole were left deliberately by members of your own species who oppose endless conquest. The screen changed to show the crystal objects, with their internal patterns highlighted. These are not just art pieces. They contain mathematical formulas that reveal a fundamental flaw in your weapons systems, a flaw some among you wanted us to find. On his bridge, Vexor's 4 eyes widened in shock. He recognized the patterns, shown on the screen. They were similar to forbidden designs that a group of Arcavian scientists had proposed years ago. Scientists he had personally ordered arrested for questioning Dominion military policy. Meanwhile, near Mars, the battle was turning decisively in humanity's favor. 5 Arcavian ships had been disabled by their own weapons, and the others were in disarray, unable to fight effectively against opponents who could redirect their attacks. Sir, reported Daehyun's tactical officer, 3 enemy ships are retreating. The others are powering down weapons. Daehyun allowed himself a small smile. Hold positions. Continue broadcasting Dr. Lee's message to all Arcavian channels. Ondiwer. Earth Admiral Sung-ho watched as the shell returned to full strength. The fake weakening had served its purpose, making the Arcavians think they had found an advantage while distracting them from the real plan. Admiral, said a communication officer, we're receiving a transmission from the Arcavian command ship. Grand Marshal Vexor is requesting to speak with you. Sung-ho straightened his uniform. Put him through. Vexor's face appeared on the main screen. He looked different now. Less arrogant, perhaps even uncertain. Admiral Sung-ho, he said stiffly. It seems there has been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that led to an unprovoked attack on my planet, Sung-ho replied calmly. The Arcavian Dominion does not admit defeat, Vexor said, but in light of new information, I propose a temporary ceasefire while we verify the claims your scientist has made. Sung-ho nodded slowly. We accept your ceasefire, and we invite you to send representatives to our international moon base for discussions. Unarmed, of course. Vexor hesitated, then nodded. Agreed. I will come personally with 2 advisors. After the transmission ended, Hana and Jin rushed into the command center. They had been monitoring from their lab. It worked, Hana exclaimed. Both the deflectors and Dr. Lee's broadcast. We're not celebrating yet, Sung-ho cautioned. This is just the first step. The Arcavians still have a massive fleet, and Vexor doesn't strike me as someone who accepts defeat easily. Jin pushed his glasses up. But we've shown them something important, that not all problems can be solved with brute force. Sometimes the elegant solution is the most effective. From his ship near Mars, Captain Daehyun reported that all Arcavian vessels in that area had either been disabled or had surrendered. Earth's first space battle against an alien force had ended in victory. As preparations began for the meeting, on the moon, Dr. Mina Lee continued studying the artifacts. She was convinced now that they had been left as a message, a peace offering from Arcavians who wanted another way. The patterns are becoming clearer, she told Admiral Sung-ho. There's more here than just weapon frequencies. I believe these contain cultural information too, art, music, philosophy. Whoever left these wanted a true exchange, not conquest. Sung-ho looked thoughtful. Then perhaps there's hope for more than just a ceasefire. In orbit, Vexor stared at the blue planet below, his mind racing. For the first time in his long military career, he faced a situation that power alone could not resolve. These humans, with their paper-thin defense that had turned his own strength against him, had forced him to consider something new. The possibility that the Dominion's approach had been wrong all along. The International Moon Base gleamed in the harsh sunlight as shuttles from both Earth and the Arcavian fleet approached. Built as a scientific research station years before the alien arrival, it now served as neutral ground for the first official meeting between humans and Arcavians. Admiral Sung Ho led the Earth delegation. With him were Hana Park, Dr. Jin Kang, Dr. Mina Lee, and Captain Dae Hyun. They waited in the main conference room, a large circular chamber with windows that offered a stunning view of Earth hanging in the black sky. "They're here," said Dae Hyun, looking at a small screen on his wrist. "3 Arcavians as agreed, all unarmed." Sung Ho nodded. "Remember, we want peace, but from a position of strength. We've proven we can defend ourselves and even fight back if needed, but war benefits neither side." The door slid open and 3 Arcavians entered. In the front was Grand Marshal Vexer, his gray skin looking even paler in the artificial light. His 4 eyes moved quickly around the room, assessing everything. Behind him were 2 others, one dressed in similar military attire and another in what appeared to be civilian clothes with complex patterns similar to those in the crystal artifacts. "Admiral Sung Ho," said Vexer with a slight nod. "I am here, as agreed." "Welcome to the moon base, Grand Marshal," Sung Ho replied. "Please sit." The 2 delegations took their places at the round table. No one spoke for a moment, the weight of this historic meeting hanging in the air. Finally, Sung Ho broke the silence. "Let me introduce my team. Engineer Hana Park and Dr. Jin Kang, who developed our defensive systems. Dr. Mina Lee, our expert on your language and culture. And Captain Dae Hyun, commander of our Mars Defense Force." Vexor gestured to his companions. "Commander Kelvar, my second in command. And this is Advisor Nira, a cultural specialist." Nira, the Arcavian in civilian clothes, looked directly at the humans with evident interest. Unlike Vexer's stern expression, her face showed something that might have been curiosity or even excitement. "We have reviewed your evidence," Vexer began formally. "It appears that our scout ship was indeed damaged by an automated mining device, not a deliberate attack. This changes our assessment of your actions." "And what about the artifacts?" asked Mina. "Do you acknowledge they were left deliberately, for us to find?" Vexer's upper eyes narrowed slightly, but Nira spoke before he could answer. "Yes," she said, her voice softer than Vexer's. "They were left by members of what you might call a peace movement within our society. I am one of them." Vexer shot her a sharp look but didn't contradict her. "The Arcavian Dominion has conquered many worlds," Nira continued. "But some of us believe this endless expansion through force must end. We seek understanding, not subjugation." Jin leaned forward. "The mathematical formulas in the artifacts, they're brilliant. They taught us how your weapons work, yes, but there's much more there, isn't there?" Nira's expression brightened. "You saw that?" "Yes. The crystals contain not just weapon frequencies but art forms, music patterns, philosophical concepts, the foundations of our culture. We brought something for you," said Hana. She placed a small box on the table and opened it. Inside were the 4 original artifacts, but they looked different now. The humans had added to them, etching new patterns that complemented the original. "Arcavian designs. We studied your mathematical art and added our own," explained Jin. "Human mathematics, art, and music, integrated with yours." Nira carefully lifted one of the modified artifacts, turning it to catch the light. The patterns inside shifted, human and Arcavian elements flowing together in beautiful harmony. "This is remarkable," she whispered. "You didn't just use our technology against us, you understood it, appreciated it." Vexer studied the modified artifacts with his 4 eyes. For the first time, his stern expression softened slightly. "Your defense system," he said, looking at Hana and Jin. "It was unlike anything we've encountered. We expected brute force, shields that would try to match our weapons in power. Instead, you created something that used precision and minimal energy to turn our own strength aside." "Like paper-splitting water," said Jin. "We didn't need an indestructible fortress. We just needed to understand the flow of energy and find the right point of intersection." Vexer nodded slowly. "The Arcavian Dominion has always valued strength above all. For 500 years we have conquered through superior force. No civilization has ever stood against us, until now." "And what does that mean for our future?" "Relations?" asked Sung Ho carefully. Vexer and his military companion exchanged glances. Then surprisingly, Vexer looked to Nira. The Dominion Council has reconsidered certain policies, Vexer said, choosing his words carefully. Advisor Nira and her faction have been granted more influence in our approach to new civilizations. What the Grand Marshal means, Nira said with a slight smile, is that your unexpected defense forced a debate in our highest councils. A civilization that can turn our greatest strength against us without matching our firepower. This suggests a creativity and efficiency we had not considered valuable before. We propose a treaty, said Vexer formally. The Arcavian Dominion will recognize Earth and its colonies as a sovereign entity, not subject to our rule. In exchange, we request knowledge exchange and trade relations. The humans looked at each other with cautious optimism. This was far better than they had hoped for. We would welcome such an arrangement, said Sung Ho. But we will need guarantees that your fleet will withdraw from our system once the treaty is signed. Agreed, said Vexer. As the two delegations worked out the details of their agreement, Mina brought out something unexpected, several sheets of actual paper and a pen. What is this material? Asked Nira, touching the paper curiously. It's called paper, Mina explained. An ancient human technology for recording information. It's made from plant fibers, pressed flat and dried. How primitive, muttered Commander. Kelvar. And yet remarkably effective, countered Nira. Just like their defense system. Mina smiled. We thought it would be fitting to write our treaty on this material. After all, it was the concept of paper, something seemingly fragile but surprisingly effective when used correctly, that helped us survive your attack. Vexer looked at the paper for a long moment, then nodded his agreement. The treaty they created became known as the Paper Treaty in years to come. It established not just peace between humans and Arcavians, but the beginning of a cultural exchange that would transform both civilizations. 3 months later, as the last Arcavian warships prepared to leave Earth orbit, Hana and Jin stood at a window in the orbital station watching them go. Do you think they've really changed? Asked Hana. 500 years of conquest doesn't end overnight. Jin pushed his glasses up and smiled. Maybe not, but they've seen something new, that there's strength in efficiency, not just in power. That understanding the nature of a problem can be more effective than throwing force at it. Like knowing exactly where to place a sheet of paper, Hana said with a smile. Below them, Earth turned peacefully, its blue oceans and white clouds visible through gaps in the shell, which was now usually kept at minimal power, a precaution, rather than a necessity. In her lab on the moon base, Mina worked side by side with Nira, studying both human and Arcavian culture and language. The modified artifacts sat between them, symbols of two civilizations that had found a way to complement each other rather than clash. And far away, on other worlds conquered by the Arcavian Dominion, news began to spread of how a small, seemingly primitive species had turned the invincible Arcavian fleet away, not with superior firepower, but with the equivalent of a perfectly placed sheet of paper. For the first time in 5 centuries, the conquered worlds began to hope for something new. Perhaps strength wasn't always measured in firepower. Perhaps someday they too could find their own paper defense. The end.